How is running a business unscripted working out for you? Or do you have a strategy in place that guides your execution? A few weeks ago, I was returning from a business trip and my regular taxi driver picked me up. We have had a conversation on various things, including building credit, replacement of equipment, contracts, so on and so forth. And I asked the taxi driver a question: when was the last time that his company had done a value leakage audit? Very simply stated, businesses over a period of time accumulate some flab or some unnecessary expenses. Notorious in these areas are consumption based usage or pricing that you have, contracts that you have, or any contract that you're locked in where the payment directly goes out of your account. You set up an automatic transaction and you're not watching slow increases in pricing that are happening over a period of time. You might be paying for services that you're not even incurring. So we had a conversation around that, and in my mind, it's almost like cybersecurity these days, because they don't tell you, experts tell you, it's not if you are going to have a breach or a compromise in your information, or your information is compromised, but when your information is compromised. So not all breaches can be prevented, not all intrusions can be prevented, but they say the best response today is to have a well-documented, rehearsed cyber security incident response plan. So I always ask organizations, do you have a cybersecurity incident response plan? Who is going to be the tip of the spear? The answer that I usually get is, oh, my vendor will notify me if there is any breach because they hold my data. Fantastic. Once they notify you about the breach, do you know what your obligations are to your customers and those whose data you are a custodian of? Well, long story short, not to digress, but strategy, coming back to our topic on strategy, pundits argue that strategy is not pure planning. It may involve certain components of planning, but strategy is a set of coordinated survival and growth choices. So my question to you today is, do you know what those survival and growth choices that are so unique to your running of the business and that are so specific to the context of your business are? I was very recently listening to a very successful businessman. He's a multi-millionaire. He had bought and sold businesses. He was talking about customer satisfaction. And what he said was very interesting, and I could relate to that. He was of the view that your customer satisfaction frame of reference is just limited to the last good service they got from your organization. Absolutely true, isn't it? You could do your very best and you think you have a customer for life, and then all that it takes is one mistake in the service, and then you have a customer who is very unhappy. The example that the gentleman was giving was like the wave. You're standing in the middle of the waves are thrashing about, you're talking to your customer, you're helping your customer through that, and once the wave recedes, you are forgotten and the customer does not even mention that you were part of the solution. So customer management these days is also an art and a science. So what happens? Organizations walk a fine line between over-investing in their business and losing their customers. That's always a balance that you decide or organizations make. From time to time, the call is always made, do I invest more in technology? My competition is doing that, or can I afford to lose a few customers? What about quality? Quality has become very interesting these days. I was talking to someone in the manufacturing segment, and he told me in his business in manufacturing these days, at least in the context in which he was operating, quality is no longer a differentiator, it's a given. Price is the only variable. So, are you equipped? Have you asked yourself the question, if I am competing in an aggressively price sensitive market, am I making the right choices? So, those are things that businesses, no matter how small or large, need to constantly ask themselves. What about succession planning? You might have decided in your mind that after you, your son or your daughter is going to step into business, but do you have a strategy? Do you have a plan of introducing them into the business without creating chaos or confusion in the rank and file of your organization? It's been my experience that when you introduce family members into a family owned organization without communication or without clarity, it really creates a lot of problems for the employees of the organization. So you might be thinking in your mind, okay, my son's in college, he's going to come out and he's going to just join business. Fine, but have you planned that out? Recently, I heard a conversation where a father handed over his business to his sons. But the father did not walk away from the business. He was very much involved in the operations of the business. So that put the family in a peculiar situation. The sons wanted to take over the business, but the father was still involved, engaged, making decisions, looking at it, because that's what he was used to for doing most of his life. He didn't know what else to do. So as the discussion ramped up about this situation, a solution was given to these sons that confront your father, tell your father that he needs to step out and let you lead the business. My approach would have been different. If I were advising the organization, I would have said, hey, let's have a strategy with a plan embedded into it where you utilize the goodwill, the experience of the dad, and slowly work a transition plan out. Succession planning can be a big deal breaker in organizations, and believe me, it's not worth losing your relationship over. Business leadership can often get very lonely. There are some things that you're processing that only you can understand. And as a business owner or a CEO, you may not be able to completely put into a process the things that you are processing or things that keep you up at night. But it might be a lot easier for you to talk to someone, use someone as a sounding board, use someone, get some ideas on the situation. So, if you have a growth mindset, you're non-judgmental, you're concerned about the employees who work for you, and you're open to suggestions, then here is the deal. I will spend 45 minutes with you No preconditions, no charge, no obligation. And we will work on something that is most pressing at this point in time. We will discuss and we will, borrowing a term from my coach training days, we will co-innovate options that are open to you.